In this episode of The Bear Roars, Dan Caruso sits down with Blake Scholl, founder and CEO of Boom Supersonic, for a behind-the-scenes look at one of the most dramatic pivots in modern aerospace. Blake shares why Boom choosing to build its own engine became a turning point, not just for supersonic flight, but for the company's survival. The conversation explores Boom's historic breakthrough, breaking the sound barrier, and the unlikely discovery that Boom's custom engine could unlock a massive new opportunity, powering AI data centers. Blake reflects on the emotional toll of flying XB-1 for the first time with days of cash left, the role of luck and resilience in entrepreneurship, and why building small, fast, and vertically integrated teams may be the future of advanced engineering. Let's poke the bear to kick off the conversation.
Blake, this is a part two, but it's a very different situation than when we first did the recording of Boom about a bit more than a year ago. Mm-hmm. And this is going to be one of the greatest pivot stories, I think, in tech history, the way this is playing out. I can't wait to tell kind of the story of the past 2 years.
Yeah, it's been an interesting couple of years, yes.
Yes. And I want to start with Rolls-Royce, if that's okay, because they were building your engine. And sometime around a year and a half, 2 years ago, they had to go through a strategic review themselves, and they had to scale back certain projects and certain commitments. And one of them they scaled back was the engine they were building for you. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I wish I could go back and get back the years of my life that I spent trying to outsource a supersonic jet engine as a startup. And, you know, in retrospect, kind of the most surprising thing is that it almost worked. Like we actually did nearly convince a 100-year-old British company to build a semi-custom supersonic engine for a startup project. This is implausible on the face of it, and we're actually very, very lucky it didn't work. But it was in early, I think, 2022. Literally, we got to the point where Rolls was taking the project to their board of directors for approval to go officially bid on it. And the outcome of that meeting was not approval to proceed. The outcome of that meeting was the CEO was fired.
Oh, wow.
And this was a bit of a gut punch. We'd made the mistake of kind of having all of our eggs in one basket. And I think we made the mistake of believing the standard industry lore that only the big guys can build jet engines. And we had thought that if you kind of took on a current jet engine and just modify it, you'd be able to get there. And so I remember that year going to a talk that Brian Chesky, the founding CEO of Airbnb, gave. And Brian was talking about having led Airbnb through COVID. And he said something like, you know, in a crisis, the key is to remember who you really are and who you're really supposed to be and get back to who you always should have been. And I remember sitting in the audience and hearing that, and it was as if Brian had said, Boom should build their own engine.
Yes.
Because that's what I heard.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was like, okay, you know, when we started the company, that was the original plan. And we'd gotten kind of sidetracked with this notion of outsourcing it. And so I said, look, I don't think even my own team is going to resist this, but I fundamentally believe we need to own and control our own destiny here. The engine's too core to the airplane. We're going to figure this out.
Yeah, and they didn't just pull out. They didn't just quietly call you up or send you like a little text and say, hey, we didn't quite get it through the board. They were very public.
It was very rude. So or maybe rude is probably the polite way to describe it. You know, we got a call, you know, from our key champion there who was like, I don't think we're getting there. And he and I talked about it a couple times, and we basically said, okay, well, we're going to go in a different direction then. And we sort of agreed to stay friends publicly through the end of the year, and then we find a way to kind of part ways that was good for everybody involved, and maybe we'd license some technology, have a way to have them involved in a way that kind of just makes everybody look good. And meanwhile, we were just on a tear because, you know, just a few months earlier, United had ordered. July of 22, we announced a whole bunch of other partners. August of 22, we announced American had placed an order that was even bigger than United's order. And, you know, I thought that this would cause more people to lean in and want to support us. And mostly it did. But over at Rolls, it caused a freak out. And I think the calculus had been, well, so first off, they fired the CEO without naming a replacement. I don't know why the board thought this was a good idea. But it created this dynamic inside the company where basically everyone's campaigning to be the next CEO. So everyone wants to be responsible for only things that look good to the board. And I think they had previously thought Boom is this thing that's like, a long shot and, we can kind of quietly walk away from it. But wait a minute, United ordered and American ordered? Like, one airline is lucky, two, there's something real here. And so I think they suddenly realized that Boom doesn't use Rolls-Royce, Boom does something else instead, was going to suddenly be a very embarrassing story for Rolls that nobody wanted to own. And the way to avoid that was to just get ahead of the story and say they broke up with us.
Yep.
So that's what they did with no warning. I was out to dinner with a supplier, and my phone starts blowing up because they've gone and told the press that they've pulled out of the project. And we were baking our own engine plan, and it was like half baked at that point. It wasn't really ready to tell everybody yet. And my team was furious, and the company went from just like the most high flying state to like instantly not credible. It was instantly not fundable. Instantly couldn't sign any more suppliers. Instantly couldn't sign any more customers. Instantly was harder to hire. They really shivved us.
Yes.
And so we spent.
But you could have given up at that point too. I mean, you could have.
Sure. There have been plenty of moments where I would have had an excuse to give up, but that's not how I roll.
But that was a big. That was a.
Yeah.
The aftermath of that was certainly a big one because it was hard to raise money for any company who was doing something that was moonshot in nature.
Right.
So that was already kind of an obstacle you would have to overcome. And here you get this major curveball from Rolls-Royce very publicly saying they pulled out of the project and trying to undermine your, maybe not intentionally trying to undermine you proceeding forward, but certainly behaving in a way that was undermining to your ability to go out there and raise money to build a supply chain.
Oh, they knew what they were doing because we'd had some very explicit conversations with some very senior people over there. And we said, look, if we believe, I understand the dynamics are you're not doing this. We're going to need to transition this. And if we transition it poorly, it has a good shot of killing supersonic for the world. So how we go through this really matters. And we'd explicitly had that conversation. And by the way, this is one of the reasons Boom will never do business with Rolls-Royce, and we will never do business with any of the individuals that were involved. I'm never going to forget that. They very nearly killed the future of supersonic because of how they handled it for personal political agendas.
Right.
Sorry, I can still hear emotion in my voice in this because it very nearly did kill the company. And I remember, I remember thinking that this is like the startup equivalent of like a stage 4 cancer diagnosis, and we're gonna have to fight this, and it's going to be incredibly painful. But I was very committed that we were just not going to give up.
Yep. So in a little bit, but not right now, we're going to talk about how they did you probably the biggest favor they could do.
That's right.
But let's go back now about a year ago. So a year and maybe a couple months ago. You need to bring in money in the company. You need to bring in a lot of money, but it's very hard to bring in money. And you were faced with a choice. What choice were you faced with relative to bringing money into the company?
Yeah, well, we had to do a fairly painful down round, kind of a recap, and it was I think we got down to 7 days of cash.
And as an early investor, we certainly knew you were in a tough situation.
Yeah,
and painful. Certain it was.
It was painful for everybody involved, and the thing that I'm most grateful for is essentially every one of our major backers, yourself included, thank you, Dan, doubled down, and we ended up putting $150 million of fresh capital on the balance sheet with checks from Sam Altman, Michael Moritz, Y Combinator, Bessemer, Alex Garrico, yourself, and it was an incredibly painful financing, but it for the first time in a while kind of put us back on our front foot and able to execute. And that was just contextualize this. We had flown the XB-1 test airplane, but we hadn't broken the sound barrier yet, and that was still turned out to be about 3 months away from the financing to Mach 1.
And by the way, that airplane we're talking about is in the background, and we're going to be showing lots of pictures during this podcast because you and I walked around your facility here. You told me a bit of the history of different parts and supply chain operations, manufacturing operations. So during this, we're going to lace a lot of cool pictures. So I hope a lot of you are watching this as opposed to just listening to it.
Yeah, if you're listening, flip on the video.
Yes,
it's a sight to see. But yeah, I think we had sort of believed, because we knew for ourselves that the airplane was definitely going to break the sound barrier if only we managed to not run out of money before we did. But the world out, and so on our anchor investors told us, that's priced in. Like, don't expect a lot from that milestone. But it turned out that milestone changed everything. Because it hit much harder than I thought it would. January 28th, we broke the sound barrier for the first time. It was like the whole world noticed. And then 3 weeks later, we did it again. And that time we announced that not only could we break the sound barrier, we could do it without an audible sonic boom.
Yep.
And
well, let's talk about that for a second, because it is against regulation to fly over the U.S. at above the speed of sound because of the sonic boom. At least it was.
Yeah,
illegal.
I would say wrong tense.
Yes, wrong tense. So tell us that part of the story.
The ban on supersonic flight existed from 1973 to June 6th of this year.
Wow.
And it still gives me chills to say that. The XB-1 is the airplane.
I want to do just a double click on that. So
yeah, I can tell you that story.
Yeah, so there's a loud sonic boom that kind of follows with the plane. So wherever the plane goes over, if it's a typical traditional plane that's above the speed of sound, will leave loud booms in their wake. And because of that, you can't take a commercial airline over a landmass like the U.S. Making that really loud sound.
At least that was conventional wisdom.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's good to think of sonic boom as like the wake of a boat, meaning, if a boat goes by, eventually its wake hits you. Now, a big boat can leave a big wake. A little boat will leave a smaller wake. The closer you're out of the wake, the more intense it is. So I think there's a lot of shades of gray with sonic boom, and under what conditions is a boom, like a small wake, and it's really not a problem. But the law was very binary. Like, literally, it says thou can't go supersonic, when what it should have said was you can't make bad noises.
Yep.
And in fact, so we found a way to make the boom go away entirely, where literally it makes a U-turn in the sky and never reaches the ground. The most remarkable thing about this is it's software and engines. Software that literally it's ray tracing software. This is stuff like what Pixar uses to make an animated movie. We can use that to predict the way the sound moves through the atmosphere and fly the airplane in such a way that the boom refracts as it moves through the sky and never reaches the ground. So it's like if a tree falls in a forest, no one was there, did it really make a sound? Yeah. If a sonic boom never reaches the ground, does it matter? Yeah. No, obviously it doesn't. And this goes to, I'll call it gift number one from Rolls-Royce. Had we used their engine, we could not have done this. So we actually looked at the physics years earlier when we were building on Rolls-Royce engines, and it did not have the performance to break the sound barrier at a sufficiently high altitude for the math to work. And it's like there's like a gigantic U-turn, and the U is like 30,000 feet tall, and the Rolls engines couldn't break the sound barrier above 26,000 feet. So like the math just didn't work, and so we shelved the idea, and the whole company was focused on transoceanic supersonic flight, not over land supersonic flight. We said we'll solve the boom another day. And so what actually happened, I love this story, is in the lead up to our first supersonic flight on XB-1, I'm talking with the team, and I'm like, guys, I need a sonic boom forecast. Because the entire outside world thinks the company called Boom is all about making the boom go away, but we're not actually. And so I need to know what it's going to sound like. I need to set everyone's expectations. And secretly, I kind of wanted to know where to stand so I could hear it myself. I was excited to hear the sonic boom that we made. And the team was like, no, Blake, like it's going to be in the boomless condition. There's going to be nothing to hear. At first I was disappointed. And so sure enough, we go do that flight, and there's no sonic boom. and the world like erupts in applause, and like Twitter is full of like about how Boom has solved sonic boom. And no matter what I'm doing, I can't convince people that it's not true. And I remember thinking, okay, I go out to these engineering meetings now that we're building our own engine. And what I keep hearing is about, well, with our own engine, we're getting so much better performance with a fully custom engine. And what that means is the transonic performance is what really defines how high you can be when you go through Mach 1. Transonic performance keeps getting better every optimization cycle we do. And I'm thinking, what if the internet's right and I'm wrong? What if we actually did solve sonic boom by doing our own engine, but we just haven't discovered it yet?
Yep.
So I pulled the engineering team together on a Saturday, and I was like, guys, we've got one more supersonic flight left on XB1. We have to find out whether the full-scale airplane and engine can do this. So I want you to run the math. Tell me if it just works. And if it doesn't just work, like how far are we from making it work? Is it a bridge too far? And it took about 90 minutes. We ran the math in the meeting, engineers on laptops on a Saturday. And they said, Blake, it just works. We don't have to do anything.
Wow.
Like just by building our own engine and optimizing it, we got all the performance margin we need to make Boomless Cruise work. So I called the marketing team and I was like, guys, we're going to relaunch the company around Boomless Cruise. And everyone, no matter how many times I tell the story, everyone's going to believe it was always the plan.
Yep.
And not that we kind of stumbled into it. But that was gift number one from Rolls-Royce.
I hinted as we started this that this was going to be a story of a great pivot. And the great pivot isn't what we just talked about.
No, that's a good pivot, though.
It's a great pivot, and we're going to spend more time on that. And it wasn't that you were able to raise some money just when you need it. It's something that happened after that.
That's right.
And we're not going to quite go there yet, and it's directly related to the engine. But I just want to tease the crowd that just wait a few more minutes, and we're going to go a whole different direction with what's going on at Boom Supersonic.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit more about what the topic we're on right now. So June, something happened. What happened in June that started to change the landscape for being able to fly over a large landmass like the U.S.?
So June 6th, the president signed an executive order ending the 50-plus year ban on supersonic flight over the U.S.
What prompted President Trump to do that?
Well, we did.
You did.
So I'll tell you the story. So we announced Boomless Cruise February 10th. I posted about how the supersonic ban should really get repealed. Elon reposted it. I flew to D.C. that night. I landed at 4:30 a.m. the next day.
How was it that you fly to D.C. That doesn't necessarily mean you get to do anything when you get there.
No, I was like
what
planning,
invited you there?
Well, I was planning to go get all the meetings I could get.
Oh, yeah, so you didn't have the meetings.
So I didn't. But the time I landed, I had an invitation to the West Wing. Okay. So it was 24 hours from breaking the sound barrier to being in the West Wing. Thursday of that week, the airplane model had made it into the Oval Office, and we had a photo of the president holding our airplane.
Oh, wow. Crazy.
And it was surreal. By the way, it's still there. If you look at that Time magazine feature picture of the president, you'll see the Overture airplane in the background.
All right.
I believe it is the only piece of branded merch that's in that is.
Oh, there's plenty of Trump branded merch in those pictures.
Is the only.
Have you ever seen that red hat?
Well, okay, it might be the only not Trump branded merch.
Okay, I'll give you.
That's in the Oval Office. By the way, this morning as we're recording, there's been a bill that's been making its way through Congress to codify the results of the executive order, and it just passed the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee unanimously, right? In a world where like so much of politics is tribal, I'm very excited that supersonic is not red or blue; it's red, white, and blue.
Good. So what specifically passed Congress?
So it's called the Supersonic Aviation Modernization Act. To be clear, it's out of committee.
Okay.
So it still has to go through the House and the Senate. But by the way, there's basically the same bill also dropped in the Senate. So we've got bipartisan, bicameral support. This thing is obviously going to make it into law.
Yeah.
This is something that everyone wants to be associated with because it's so obviously exciting. Wait, can fly faster and there's no boom? Like, obviously this should be allowed.
So let's talk about flights that have now opened up. Supersonic flights have now opened up because of that. Certainly there's New York to LA or New York to San Francisco. So talk about that, but also give other examples across the world where flying from one spot to another where you want to be over a lot of land is now enabled.
Right. So the way this works is it's going to be about 2 times faster over water. And Boomless works on average about 50% faster. So you don't get quite full speed, but you get still big speed up. So from, say, the East Coast, so say from New York, you can be in London in 3.5 hours, which means you can leave in the morning and make a late afternoon meeting, even with the time difference. Or if you go the other way, New York to San Francisco will also be 3.5 hours. And that means you could leave New York at 9 a.m. and land in San Francisco at 9:30 a.m.
Wow.
So it's just phenomenal. So one of the things I want to do is an around-the-world flight. And it starts out with breakfast in London, and then you fly to New York and you have breakfast, and then you fly to San Francisco and you have breakfast. And then, in fact, as long as you keep flying west, you can just keep having breakfast.
Can we do it like for cocktails instead of for breakfast?
Oh, we'll have to have multiple.
You can have breakfast on the plane, but they will have cocktails at each location.
Yeah, if you take off in the evening,
there you go.
It's always 5 o'clock right where you are.
All right.
I mean, one way to think about it is...
so it's 5 o'clock everywhere, not somewhere.
It's always 5 o'clock on the airplane, right?
That's right.
Yeah, no, it's so long as you can fly faster than the rotation of the Earth, which you can, you can either maintain the time zone that you're in or actually go backwards.
Yep.
So from London to New York, you land about an hour and a half earlier versus when you took off.
So going back to about a year ago when you went through the down round as an investor, we weren't in the structuring of that round. We were kind of invited after it was structured to participate. And I got to tell you, as an investor, it was one of the hardest investment decisions I made. The question of, are you throwing good money after bad, or are you following smart money into a deal? In the morning, I would talk myself into one, and in the afternoon, I'd talk myself into the other. And we ended up coming on the side of writing a big check for us, a multi-million-dollar check into the restructured deal.
Thank you.
But at the time, it was unclear whether that was the right thing to do or not, and I'm sure it was unclear to everyone whether you really were going to be able to pull this off. But then, about 4 or 5 months later, something new happened.
Yes.
Walk us through what happened. I think it was in March is what you told me is when you started to kind of...
That's right. So the 2 of the most important moments of company history have started by scrolling Twitter.
Okay.
Right. So the impetus to go check whether we'd solve sonic boom started on Twitter. And what I think is the most important development in the business also started on Twitter. So it's March. I'm like... off
March just this
year,
earlier this year,
like
so
9 months ago.
9 months
this
ago.
is like the paint is still wet here. So I'm like reading everything on Twitter about how
some people
AI
call it X now, by the way.
Sorry, X. The find and replace in my brain doesn't work very well. So I'm on X, and it's full of like, the AI boom is happening. The limiting reagent for AI is actually electricity. The scale of energy needs for AI data centers are like equivalent to an entire traditional grid-connected power plant. Like you're having like multi-hundred gigawatt data centers and like that's like what a grid-connected power plant is. So they're having to build their own basically vertically integrated power plants. The grid is years behind, and the turbines they're using to do this are all sold out, and they can't get enough turbines. And I thought, when we
sold out for multiple years.
Sold out for 5 to 7 years. Like basically GE, which is the leading provider of these things, is sold out through the end of the decade. And so is everybody else. And when we started our own engine project, at this point 3 years before, we knew on day one that a supersonic power profile looked a lot more like a power turbine power profile than it did a subsonic profile. So a subsonic aircraft, your full power to get the airplane off the ground. Think of it as a passenger. You can really hear the engines running. And the moment you're up and away, like that sound goes back, they throttle back, and they're partial power for cruise. Supersonic is exact reverse. It's partial power for takeoff, full power hours on end to be going supersonic. So and that's what a power turbine is like. It's full power, continuously to make electricity. So we knew one day we were going to have like the most amazing new technology power turbine, but we thought that was academic. And I remember thinking, what if it's not academic, right? And so I texted my team and I'm like, what would it actually take to do this? And they're like, we actually already had the plan ready to go. It's straightforward. We just weren't sure if there was a market. And then I texted Sam Altman, who had been, a day one Boom investor and had, also doubled down in the down round. And Sam wrote me back instantly. And he's like, this is highly interesting. Here's who you need to talk to. And around the same time, I got another call from Cully Cavness, who is co-founder and president of Caruso, which is
no relation.
Yes.
Other than they're here in Colorado.
That's right.
Which is awesome. That's pretty close to where we're sitting right now in your facility.
We've had multiple conversations at Boom about, did you say Caruso or Caruso? But it was about 90 days later that we had a launch order for 1.21 gigawatts of our turbines, so 29 of these units, and well over $1 billion.
Wow.
So it was, it might be one of the fastest ramps from an idea to more than $1 billion in backlog ever done.
So I want to double click because what you said there is such a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
You're in March or so of this year, so
right.
9 months ago, you start remembering, hey, maybe this engine we're building can serve as a turbine for these big AI data centers. You text your team, they say, yep, we can do that. We're not sure if there's a market. You text Sam Altman, he texts you right back saying, go talk to so-and-so.
Yep.
Next thing you know, you're in conversations with Caruso, who's building these gigantic data centers and is known for creatively addressing the power situation. Mm-hmm. And now you're engaged in a conversation with them that quickly leads to a $1.1 billion plus customer contract to deliver the engines.
That's right.
And this happens between March and everything I described?
I'm trying to remember when we signed the deal. I think it was July.
So within a handful of months.
Yeah. It was like pretty quick from idea to $1 billion in backlog. Yeah. And if I think about all of this, it's really shaped my view of luck. And I've come to think of luck is actually information. And bad luck is the world telling you you're making a mistake. And good luck is the world pointing at opportunity. Mm. And the key is to listen and to really hear what luck is telling you. And so I think about like that thing blowing up with Rolls-Royce. Let's face it, it was a really dumb idea to put the most important subcomponent of our product in the hands of a much bigger company that was not invested in our success, right? That was bad strategy, and we would have had to get incredibly lucky for that thing to work. So it was much better to get off of that. Or if I think about the data center thing, again, that was the world telling us, hey, there's an opportunity here, and we needed to listen. And one of the things I'm very proud of in the company, in the culture, is we've long since had a brutally transparent internal culture, and so we share problems and talk about them openly. And the whole company understood that the biggest challenge we had in delivering a supersonic passenger airplane is how we were going to pay for the development. Like everybody knew if we got it done, it was going to be an incredible business. But I would go to every all hands and I would say, everyone needs to understand that our single biggest risk is we don't get done for an obtainable amount of money. So we have to be incredibly capital efficient. If we need as much money as Boeing would need, we're toast. So we got to figure out how to develop this thing 10 times more efficiently than anybody else could from a capital perspective. And we got to figure out all the creative ways to get money into this business. And so the whole team has sort of viciously understood that. And so when we we discovered that we could take the engine we were building anyway, and with a pretty small set of changes, turn it into a 42 megawatt power turbine. And I went and told the whole company. I was sort of afraid that all the supersonic airplane people who'd come here to build a supersonic passenger plane would come at me with pitchforks and think like Blake lost the plot. But the company additionally, everybody jumped on it. And it became the thing everyone wanted to work on because they all viscerally understood that the best and fastest path to supersonic passenger renaissance was going to be through delivering the engine first as a ground power turbine.
So I'm going to come back to the luck discussion in a second, but before I go there, I want to bring out a little bit more how big of an opportunity this turbine for AI data centers is for you guys. You mentioned one customer contract, not even one customer, just one customer contract. Your first one, that's $1.2 billion. You also told me in the past that one thing you discovered as you worked with that customer is that what your turbine does is at a much higher performance than today's
Yeah.
state of the art. Do you want to talk a little bit more
Yeah,
about
so
that?
let me set the backdrop for anybody who doesn't know turbines. So there are gigantic turbines called frames that are typically used at like grid-connected power plants. These are like multi-hundred megawatt machines. They are multi-year construction projects to put in. Like if someone hands you a frame turbine, good luck, you'll have it operational in 4 years. And by the way, the turbines themselves are sold out for 5 to 7 years. So those things are gone. But there's this kind of mid-sized class of turbine called aeroderivative. And what that means is basically modified jet engines. And so GE, Rolls-Royce, Pratt & Whitney, everybody who makes jet engines has a side business selling them modified as ground power turbines, quote unquote aeroderivative turbines. And these are kind of 20 to 80 megawatts, kind of a class engine. And they're all based on subsonic technology. So what does that mean? It means they're designed to operate at 30,000 feet. And think about the view out when you're on an airplane, you look out the window at 30. There are ice crystals on the window. They're designed to operate when it's really cold. And when you're on them on the ground, where obviously it's much warmer, let alone, say, in Texas, where it's really hot, the only way to have them literally not melt down is to throttle the engine back. So if you take an aeroderivative turbine and you run it out of the box, you'll lose about 30% of the power in Abilene, Texas on a hot day. So you got to buy 30% more turbines. By the way, these things are impossible to get. You need 30% more of them. It's a nightmare. And you can buy that down to 20% if you're willing to like use an enormous amount of water as like a swamp cooler in the intake. But water is hard to get. It's expensive to get. You have to engineer it. In some places, it's a political problem to get water. You don't want to use water. But a supersonic engine operates in a completely different thermal environment. These things are designed to be at Mach 1.7 at 60,000 feet, where the effective air temperature is 160 degrees. So what this means is, in 110 degrees at Stargate in Abilene, Texas, we produce full power. Actually, it produce more than full power. As the temperature goes up, our engine actually gains power because its happy spot is 160. And so 110 in Texas is kind of no big deal. And so what we realized is, one, the real world megawatts is much better. It doesn't derate, it actually prorates. The other is because this is an engine that's designed to be compact, it fits in an ISO shipping container. So it's like super easy to deploy. This is not a construction project to put it in. Like if you've got the pad poured and you've got natural gas and you've got an electric hookup, you can be operational in 14 days.
Wow.
So this is a radically better deployment. And then the more we get into this, the more it's just like better and better and better and cost savings. So there's no water. It doesn't derate. The construction costs are simpler. And what that means is like dollars per, like our launch customer probably got like a 50% discount.
Yeah, how about it?
But by the way, it's still super profitable for us. So there's just all kinds of win here.
And when do you think you're going to have the first one up and operational?
Well, we're making it right now. It's actually the parts are getting made. Some
Close
of them
to here, right?
in this building, we're literally making turbine parts as we speak. We'll have the first one running early next year. We're planning basically 2 major engineering iterations before the first unit goes out in the field. One of the things I've really come to learn, having gone through the process of building the XB-1 airplane behind us, is you want to build in engineering iteration, both in digital design and in physical design. And by the way, no one else does it this way. But if you do it this way, you can be much faster and much less expensive and ship a better product. So we gear everything around speed of iteration. And so by the time Caruso gets their first unit, it'll be the 3rd engineering iteration that we've actually tested in hardware. And so that'll happen in about 18 months in 2027.
Wow, crazy. And how big is the market for these turbines?
It is far bigger. I mean, it's far bigger than our ability to supply it. Writ large, this is electricity market, right? And the U.S. grid right now produces about 750 gigawatts at peak. Sam Altman has said for OpenAI, he wants an incremental 250 gigawatts.
Just for
OpenAI, right? And I don't know, it's Sam. Maybe he's assuming he takes the entire market, but I think I think there's more than that.
Yep.
And our baseline plan was to produce 7.5 gigawatts in the next 5 years. So Caruso ordered 1.21, and since we unveiled the superpower turbine about 10 days ago, I've gotten more demand in my inbox than our entire production plan for the next 5 years. So we're going back, sharpening our pencils. We're trying to figure out how we make much more of this. But it's easy to see our way to this being a $25 billion market cap business just in the power turbine. And then that turns into, viewed from the aspect of the supersonic passenger plane, it solves the two biggest problems. How do we prove that our brand new engine is reliable? Great. We're going to test it for hundreds of thousands of hours on the ground, and we're going to get paid to do the testing because we're making electricity that people really want, right? So it's like all of a sudden our test challenge goes from a negative to a positive, and then it makes the other thing we really need, which is money. And so the annuity stream off of the power turbine is the capital stream that is going to allow all of us to go supersonic again.
Yep. But you need some money up front in order to kind of start building those.
Yes.
Any developments there?
Well, thanks to you and some other folks.
Being a tiny way, by the way.
Yeah. Well, we just closed $300 million in fresh financing.
Yep.
And that, having kind of, fought to survive financially for a decade, it feels incredibly good to be able to say this is the last equity we ever need.
Yep. And a nice up round from.
A nice up round.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I think your mark is like a little bit better than a factor of 2.
Yes.
2.5, something like
Yes.
that. And we're just getting started.
Yeah.
So basically the Series B financing that we just did pays to get the superpower turbine shipped, which then pays to get the airplane shipped. So we will never again be in that position of needing money.
Great. So I want to get back to that word luck. And you said you got to listen in order to get luck. Agree with that. But the way I described it, and I described it with you a number of times, is people who work really hard, people are enormously curious, people who, when they're faced with adversity, they keep thinking, interacting with people, trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to get through this? Mm-hmm. People make their own luck. You need luck. I look back at my career, and I think of how many times there was kind of a fork in the road, and I easily could have fallen on either side
Mm-hmm.
of the fork, and it turned out each time I was on the side that worked out, and then I look back, if I didn't get on that, what might have happened?
Mm-hmm.
And I know luck played a major role in getting me from here to there, but I also know I worked really hard, and I was constantly
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure things out. I was constantly, trying to, ask, how could it be done better? How can I be better?
Yeah.
And I think that's what people do. The people who benefit from the most luck typically are people who work the hardest to make the luck happen.
Yeah, at the risk of some survivorship bias, I think the role of luck, I think the role of good luck is generally overstated. I will acknowledge I'm incredibly lucky to have been born in this country,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is far, far better. And the hurdles I would have to jump over if I were born at a different time at a different place would be much harder. So let's give luck full credit there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think you can absolutely expose your surface area to luck, and it's a skill.
I like that. Expose your surface area to luck.
Right.
Put yourself in a position where you're more likely to be the beneficiary of luck as opposed to the victim.
That's right, because business doesn't work like Vegas, right? Mm-hmm. In Vegas, if you play enough, the house always wins. But in business, if you work hard enough, you always win. I think there's very much a skill of allowing yourself to get lucky. When you get lucky, noticing and taking advantage of it. Like some people let luck go right by them.
Yes.
Right? We had to take advantage of the luck that we had. And by the way, I think it's not necessarily accurate to see bad luck as bad. Bad luck is information. And you have to take advantage of that information too. Like the whole Rolls-Royce thing blowing up on us, I could look at that as how unlucky it was that the CEO got fired at the critical juncture. Or instead I could have said, this is an opportunity for me to realize how incredibly fragile our strategy was and how fundamentally mistaken it was. And we created our own bad luck by pursuing a bad strategy. Reality tapped us on the shoulder, or maybe it kicked us in the junk. And then we got to take advantage of the bad luck. And by taking advantage of the bad luck, we set ourselves up for the future good luck. If somehow we'd managed to get someone else to do our engine, I think the company actually would have died. By the way, what we found out later is not only was it a business proposition problem with Rolls. Like the technology had been oversold. Now that we're like sufficiently far into the engine design process, we see all the problems what Rolls had been promising, and we know how to do it far better. And so there are actually three gifts from Rolls. Gift number one was Boomless Cruise. Couldn't have been possible with their engine. Gift number two is the power turbine business, which makes the entire thing financially viable. Like without that, there's probably less than a 50% chance that the supersonic passenger flight would have come back. But now I think there's like a much, much higher chance that we all get to go supersonic in our lifetimes. And the third thing is one that's not, we haven't revealed in detail yet. But because we were able to optimize the airplane and the engine together, we have a completely different interior, which becomes technically feasible. So the inside experience in Overture is enabled by the fact we have our own engine, and it's much, much better. I think people will be very surprised.
When will you be unveiling those designs?
You and I can walk around the hangar and I'll show you something. Okay. But I don't know when we'll show it publicly. We're not in a big hurry.
Yeah, because right now your number one party by far is the turbines for the AI data centers. That's
right. Yeah, I mean, we are. You call it a pivot at the opening of the conversation, and I see why people call it that. I think of it as a resequencing. Yeah. We took what would have been Act 2 and we made it Act 1, but we didn't let go of Act 1. It's just going to be our Act 2.
Yeah. Well, you're funding Act 2.
That's right.
You're funding and you're building the engine for Act 2. So
that's right.
You're on the same end game. I like to think of what Elon talks about when he talks about SpaceX. Their mission is to colonize Mars. But how are they making their money? By putting small satellites up there.
That's right. Starlink.
That's being used for communication services.
Yeah, I mean, and that's another way to one. There's a comparison. You can think of the power turbine as like our Starlink. It's this thing that helps fund the rest, which is a amazing thing in its own right that should exist and solves important problems. Yes. Right? Like Starlink is an amazing thing in its own right, and also it greatly increases the odds we're going to go to Mars. So my eyes have been peeled for 10 years. Like, what's our Starlink? What's our Starlink? Is that our Starlink? No, that's a shiny object, right? Yeah. And so our radar was like very much up and looking for the Starlink of supersonic flight. It just took us 10 years to find it.
Yeah. Speaking of AI, when you started this 10-year quest, AI wasn't what AI is today.
No, it was kind of a joke.
You were doing it the hard way, right?
Right.
You had to do it the old-fashioned way. Yeah. But now you have the benefit of AI. Yeah. How's that going to affect your ability to design and advance your technology?
It is far more significant than I think people realize. And I think we're just scratching the surface internally. So one of the things that's kind of a fundamental core principle at Boom is we will do with a small team what traditionally required a large team. And one way to look at it is that, well, it's just cheaper. But it's actually... small teams will be able to do things that big teams might not even attempt. Like we did the XB-1 airplane with 50 people.
Yeah, you were showing me the signatures on the side of this plane right here in the background. Yeah. All the people who contributed to the design and building of the plane, right, have signed the side of the plane.
Airplane.
And
that's right.
It's how many people? 50 people?
It's 50 people, yeah. And one of the reasons we did that was we knew that one day this airplane is going to end up in the National Air and Space Museum. And I think it will go down in history is the airplane that broke open the supersonic age and the one that resulted in supersonic flight being legal again. And so, but people will remember that Geppetto flew the airplane. People will probably remember that Boom built the airplane. The same way that people remember Chuck Yeager and the Bell X-1. But who worked on the Bell X-1? It's actually very difficult to even find the answer. And so I wanted, when this airplane's in a museum, the people who worked long, smart, and hard, who gave blood, sweat, and tears, literally, to the effort, will be able to take their kids and their grandkids to the museum and point at their signature and say, I did that.
How nervous were you when the plane first went up in the air and then subsequently when you broke the speed of sound? Were you nervous?
The first flight was incredibly scary on multiple levels, including we had like a whole bunch of money. This is March of 2024 that we flew it for the first time. And we were nearly out of money. We had a whole bunch of money tied to flying it that month. I couldn't tell the team that was the case because you can't pressurize. If I tell the team, by the way, like if we don't fly, by date certain, we might go away. That's how you suddenly get a bunch of bad safety decision making.
Yes.
So there was a very small number of people who kind of knew how close to the cliff we were, and it was March 22nd. The weather was worse than forecast, and so the way we do, and by the way, you go fly a new airplane for the first time, the moment the wheels come off the ground, like reality is going to start talking. It's going to tell you whether you got the answers right or not.
Yep.
And this is probably, XB1 is probably the most complicated first thing ever built by a startup, and it's safety critical. So there's a new company that's like the first thing we decided to do is build a human piloted supersonic jet. And like, does it work, right? Is it going to be controllable? Is it going to land safely? And so the way you do flight test is there's the airplane that you're testing, and then there's another airplane called Chase that flies in formation with it. And so the way the early flights were done is Chase would actually take off first, climb to altitude, check weather at altitude, tell is it too turbulent or is it okay? Come back around and do what's called an airborne pickup, where the two airplanes basically take off in formation with one already airborne. And so they, and by the way, for a first flight, there's like a very narrow window because we're being appropriately conservative from a safety perspective. So from the moment we say go, we've got 7 minutes to get off the ground before we no longer have enough fuel. So Chase takes off, climbs up to 10,000 feet. I hear the call on the radio. It's smooth. It's Michael Bolton smooth. And we're like, okay, we're a go. And so we burn down fuel to maximum takeoff weight. And Chase comes around, and they kind of count down on the radio. 30 seconds, 10 seconds, brakes, now. And then like, nope, winds are out of limits, can't go.
Oh.
And so Chase flies around and then makes an orbit. And now there's 5 minutes of fuel left. Winds are out of limits. By the way, it's March 22nd. The weather forecast the entire rest of the month is garbage.
Ooh, so it's
and I'm kind of like, we got to get off the ground today, but I can't tell anybody that. And so now it's 3 minutes of fuel. Winds are out of limits. Now it's 30 seconds of fuel. Sorry, I'm going to tear up as I tell this story. It's just of how close this was. There's not enough fuel to make a complete lap with the Chase plane, so the Chase is going to do a half lap. We're going to give it one more shot before we have to pack it in. And I feel a gust hit the back of my neck. And I'm like, we are so fucked. We're so fucked. And the next thing I hear is some music on the radio. And Doc, who is the test pilot who did the first flight, had a habit of rolling some music the first time he ever did anything in the airplane. And I looked on the runway and he's going. And I'll never forget that moment of standing there next to the runway and seeing the airplane 50 feet in the air.
All right.
And then that first flight, you don't go supersonic in one go. You test out the simple stuff first. So we were airborne for about 12 minutes. And I don't know that I breathed between takeoff and touchdown.
Because really, one, the pilot really well, and if something happens to the pilot, you're going to feel absolutely, horrible for life.
Yeah.
And then two, your dreams are now
That's
caught
right.
up in this flight. Something goes wrong. It's one thing to not take off. It's another thing to take off and there be a problem.
That's right. If,
everything was at stake.
Like if software crashes, it's annoying. When airplane crashes, people get hurt. Yeah. And we were basically, and still are, effectively the only supersonic company. And if we screwed this up, it was half a century from Concorde to Boom. And if we screwed it up, I don't know how much time would go by before anybody ever tried it again. Yeah. And so I felt a lot of responsibility to land the airplane.
So tell me about other parts of the world. How are they reacting to what you're doing? Maybe do a quick tour of different major parts of the world. Are they partners with you? Are they customers? Do they care about it?
Are we talking aviation or power or?
Both. Let's start with that. Both. I'm sure both are, catching attention.
From an aviation perspective, it's actually super clear that basically every international airline is going to need Overture. Is it the the vast majority of international airline revenue and profit comes from business class. Like it's about half the revenue and 80% of the operating profit. On a passenger cohort basis, it's even more. This is why the business class lounges were so nice. And so if you make money from business class, you're going to need supersonic airplanes, or everyone's going to switch airlines. It's abundantly clear. And actually, this week, United released its new 787 layout. They're putting even more business class in. Like this is the most important growing subsegment. This is what supersonic addresses squarely. And every airline's going to need it. So it's super inevitable. Like once one domino falls, they all fall. From an energy perspective,
are you just assuming that, or have you had conversations with people from different parts of the world?
We've talked to everyone. I mean, there are airlines that are willing to lean in early. And for us, that was United Airlines, Japan Airlines, American Airlines that have orders or pre-orders. All three of those airlines have money in the company, one way or the other. But everyone else is in like, I mean, you can just kind of feel it. They're like waiting to see, like, is this actually going to happen? And then there's going to be a rush because they have to get in line. Mm-hmm. So I'm very optimistic. The challenge is going to be how quickly can we make enough once we field the first one. And from a power perspective, hey, holy crap! I've never seen anything like this before. Like we are in the enviable position to choose our customers. The demand is so far beyond our ability to meet it. The pie is growing faster than anyone's ability to slice it. We're in the very fortunate position to choose our early partners.
Yeah, and I of course know the digital infrastructure space really well.
Yeah,
know most of the data center companies and most of the people running them now. Although that's changed a little bit since I left the industry 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. But when something like this happens in the industry, word spreads really quick, and I'm sure you're getting inbounds from all over. It wasn't that long ago. It was only, 2 months ago where I was introducing you to a few folks, and now you don't need introductions.
No, I need help with my inbox.
Yeah.
No, our strategy there is we'll pick at most one more early partner. Caruso's being awesome in terms of helping us like design the turbine for exactly what AI data centers need. This is going to be completely cloud controlled. You can control the turbine through an API. We're doing real time predictive maintenance. Every turbine has a Starlink antenna on it. So actually the same telemetry system we built for the airplane allows us to get real time data off the turbine, monitor it in a control room, do predictive maintenance, integrate into the power distribution architecture that folks are building out. So we'll have at most one more early partner who can like kind of help us shape how all those interfaces work in the product. And after that, I don't know, maybe we might just like auction off the delivery slots, as there is just more demand than our ability to produce, by far.
How many? I know it's early and you're still working through the delivery timelines and quantities, but can you put it in perspective? How many customers, how many deployments do you think you'd be able to do in each of the first handful of years?
So our plan is to deliver 200 megawatts in 27, a gigawatt in 28, and then just keep doubling. 2 gigawatts in 29, 4 gigawatts in 30. And so that's
a gigawatt
7.5.
Is about how much of revenue, give or take?
Well, I don't want to really disclose our pricing, but it's more than $1 per gigawatt. Mm-hmm. And we're talking nameplate here. And so it's also a superpower nameplate gigawatt is worth about 2 gigawatts nameplate of other people's stuff because of the D rating.
Yep.
So our gigawatts are more than their gigawatts. Maybe that should be our new T-shirt. And we're gonna see if we can ramp production faster than that. Yep. There's such a need for it.
I want to come back to the use of AI to design the plane going forward, design your technology in general. We touched on that, but we kind of got off track a little bit.
Okay. So we talked about small teams, and then I think we got lost in the emotion of the small team.
Yes.
So AI enables small teams, and there's such a virtuous cycle with what small teams can do, because small teams don't need as much management overhead. It's easier to keep the hiring bar high. You don't need as many layers. You can move far faster. There are all these benefits of small teams. So if you look in like legacy aerospace, typically you need enormous teams, and one of the reasons is just the amount of regulatory overhead. And it turns out one thing LLMs are really good at is filling out regulatory paperwork. So to give you just one example, we built this thing internally that is basically an LLM that we trained on all of the regulatory documentation, advisory stuff around aviation. And we can ask it things like, make us a certification plan for Overture for lightning strike protection with the following design parameters. It's like a short prompt, and it'll think for a moment. It'll give us a 200-page document, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
And and traditionally that would require an engineer about 2 months to do,
and a very specific type
a very specific type of engineer for 2 months. And it's by the way, it's like a kind of engineer who's happy spending 2 months writing paperwork, right? Which is not the most creative engineer. So let's just go from two months of a not very creative engineer, of which you need an army, to maybe 2 hours of an incredibly creative engineer, basically managing the AI. And so that to a first order, what this means is you can have a small team of far more creative people and far more fun jobs. To a second order, I think the second order is the more important impact, which is when it takes an engineer 2 months to go create a document, the last thing anybody ever wants to do is have to change it. And so there's this massive change aversion in airplanes, in aerospace generally. And so like people want to build stuff and stick with it forever, and they don't want to iterate because there's all this stuff that makes the cost of change high. And so what we're doing is gearing everything we do around reducing the cost of change. And there's a set of it that's very digital, which is about we embed software engineers in every hardware team. We automate what would traditionally be manual engineering, so we can make workflows repeatable. So if you want to go change a design, redo an analysis, if you've done the analysis once, it's free to do it a second time. This is revolutionary in this industry, and some of that is just traditional software. Some of it's AI, like we were just talking about. So there's all this stuff about iteration in the world of bits, but then there's also iteration in the world of atoms. Yep. And the key thing there is what you and I were looking at in this building, which is having our own vertically integrated ability to produce parts.
Yeah, let me just pause on that for a second, because we think of AI today, almost everything we're talking about is large language models, LLMs. Whether it's OpenAI or it's what Google's doing, and all the variations, perplexity, it's large language models. But Gen AI is more than that. And are you familiar with the new startup that Jeff Bezos is behind? It was at a gathering in which Jeff was one of the guests and speaker, and he was talking about what they're doing is building a Gen AI model for physics AI, for what you're about to go into right now, for how do you design real world equipment, real world parts, real world designs using Gen AI.
I think it's an incredibly exciting space. Yeah. From what I've seen so far, no one's really cracked physics in the loop AI, but I think it's going to get cracked. And that's going to be...
Well, Bezos is he's co-CEO. He's going to do what Elon's doing.
I am so glad to see him back in the game. Yeah. As you know, I joined Amazon right as the .com bubble was imploding. I think I got my offer like 2 weeks before the .com hiring freeze. And so I was very lucky in my early 20s to work on stuff that Jeff cared about. So when I screwed up, I had like one of the most amazing people on the planet like telling me how I had screwed up. So it was a very lucky, early learning experience. And I have an incredible amount of respect for that guy, and I'm so stoked he's back in the game.
Yep, and he's back doing something that's, I think, probably relevant to what you're going to need as you get back to building out kind of that next iteration of the plane. Yeah,
I think it's going to apply on the ground and on the air.
Yeah.
The design. One of the other things we're seeing is we took a team of brilliant supersonic airplane designers and put them on a power turbine, and we are discovering things that were like well-known great things to do with an airplane that nobody in the engine world ever thought of. And we're discovering great things done in the engine world that nobody in the airplane world ever thought of. And so by cross-pollinating across these traditionally very separated domains, we're just finding all these opportunities to do things better.
Yeah, and now with the help of AI, so that not only are you doing that, but you're doing that with this powerful tool that's going to make your best people that much better.
That's right. Yeah, one of the things I tell the team, I think this was originally a Scott Galloway quote, was, you're not going to get replaced by AI, but you need to be worried about getting replaced by somebody who's better at using AI than you are.
Yes.
Or another take on this is, congratulations, everyone has now been promoted into management, and you manage AI agents. And it's a little bit of an exaggeration. Right now, but there's some truth to it.
The part about those who really are able to harness the power of AI are going to be worth their weight in gold relative to those who aren't. And
yeah. And my take, I think all these like AI is going to like destroy jobs takes. It's just like, I think it's completely the wrong take, because like everyone, history always shows that when you reduce the cost of something, you actually need more of it, right? Like the advent of ATMs increased the employment of tellers. Is
that true?
That is true.
Wow.
That teller employment went up through the deployment of ATMs.
Wow, I would have lost that bet.
Right? Like, I think I might have lost that too. It's over and over again. And by the way, like unless your job is literally the task. By the way, I think pre ATMs and post ATMs, the teller job probably changed. It became a lot more relational, right?
I still can't get over how many banks there are everywhere. Like, why do we need banks anymore? Yeah, it seems like there's more banks now than ever.
I mean, maybe it does seem that way. I don't know. I'm not the person to understand that, but I think that, unless your job is like literally the task that gets replaced, I think we're going to need more, because what will happen is productivity goes up. So effectively, the cost of output goes down, which means people are going to demand more output. And then in the cases where the things get displaced, I mean, I think of like telephone operators. Like, we don't have those anymore, right? But you don't see like homeless telephone operators like on the side of the street. Like, no, they all found other things to do that were probably a lot more interesting than plugging a wire in.
Yeah.
So I am very optimistic on the future, and it's just like, it's such early days too.
Yeah, and part of the future, I know you're in the air, but you're not really in space in what you're doing right now. But what's going on in space is pretty. In fact, as I was driving here, you see a lot of the space tech companies who are located really, really nearby. And today, I guess there was an executive order that is pretty significant relative to the ambition to be much more active in space again as a country. That's pretty encouraging.
Cool. I hadn't seen that yet, but it just seems like it's a good week. Jared Isaacman got confirmed
by 2028. We're going to Mars. When we go back to the moon, we're gonna stay there. Assuming we went to the moon, already.
When you're flying supersonic, you're going to be up at 60,000 feet, which is high enough that the sky is a deeper blue, and if the Earth is curved, you'll be able to see. So we're at one of the early overture flights. We're going to do a flat Earthers flight.
Okay.
And we're just going to go up and we're going to settle it.
All right, so for good. Now, what about you hear from SpaceX that to get from here to Australia in a rocket would take like an hour. Just go up, come back down on the other side of the Earth. What's your views of that?
It needs a. So I think
it needs a lot.
It needs a lot. Like so if it turned out that the reason our supersonic business failed was because it got replaced by point-to-point suborbital space travel, like I'm like sad for me, but I'm super happy for humanity.
Yeah.
That said, I'm not like super worried about that.
Yeah, I wouldn't lose any sleep over that.
No, I'm not worried. Losing if you do the math, it needs a 3 order of magnitude cost reduction versus the reusable Falcon 9, and 3 orders of magnitude is a lot. You might actually be able to get 2. I'm not sure if you can get 3. 3 is a lot. Orders of magnitude, right? Not 3 times.
3 orders of magnitude is more than 50% more than 2.
That's right. It's a 1,000-fold cost reduction for this to work. And then the safety challenges are not insignificant. 4% of people who've gone to space haven't come back. And, that's very different from the safety record that you expect in flight. Like that'll be solvable, but I don't think it's, every extra 9 of safety costs something significant.
The game changer for, I'm going to get back to where we spent a lot of this discussion. It's hard to get your head around the game changer that you guys now have by being able to build out a very robust business model that has a very significant steady stream of revenue with profit that can go on for a long period of time while you sort through your big ambition, which is to bring supersonic commercial flights back. I mean, that is just amazing. How do you feel when you think about that? I mean, especially in the context of where you were 6 months ago, a year ago, almost running out of money, not doing a supersonic flight, thinking about maybe doing a turbine.
I'll tell it through the story of my birthday wishes. So 2 years ago on my birthday, my birthday wish was I want the company to still exist a year from now, because it wasn't obvious it was. So I got that wish got granted with the down round, and then the next year I was like, my birthday wish was I want a fully funded supersonic airliner program. And I had no idea whether it was even possible.
But that was such an unrealistic birthday.
Well, apparently it wasn't.
Yeah, evidently it wasn't. But at the time it was. At the time it was a pretty ridiculous thing to ask for.
Well, I got my wish granted. Yeah. So I won't share my birthday wish this year.
We're just living in your world, Blake. That's what we're doing.
We'll see if I get this one.
Yeah. Well, you pretty much are getting it.
Well, we got the other two, right? Because I do consider that we have a fully funded supersonic airliner program because we have a fully funded power turbine program that makes all the money for it, right? So I got
Gotcha.
Got the wish.
Gotcha. So when do you think you start to be able to, in parallel with doing the turbine rollouts, be able to get fully focused again on the plane?
Yeah. So we put almost everybody in the power turbine for now.
Which makes sense.
What I don't want to do is have half a turbine and half an airplane and a whole lot of nothing. That's the only. I think that's really the only way that we fail. So it's very much like let's get the turbine working, then do the airplane. And so our goal is still to have the airplane ready for passengers in 5 years. It's possible that it'll cost us 12 or 24 months relative to that. I think it will be a massive accelerant relative to what it would have been because we will no longer be capitally limited. And when it comes time to tell the regulators why they should sign off on this, we'll have hundreds of thousands of hours of ground test data to point to for reliability. So I think ultimately it's a huge accelerant, and as soon as we can, we're going to put more team on it and walk and chew gum at the same time. But we gotta really birth the early turbine units first.
Yeah, and you've got to believe as the vision of having a supersonic plane of the type you're building becomes more and more reality, the government's going to be wanting you to do that. They're going to be pushing you to do that either from a defense standpoint or just an innovation standpoint. Instead of you have to convince them to support your dream, they're going to be like, man, can you accelerate what you're doing?
Yeah.
Maybe they'll even look to help you accelerate it at some point.
Yeah, I mean, the exciting thing is I don't think we actually need a whole lot of help. We just got to execute. Our single biggest.
Well, the government can help by getting out of your way. Of course.
Well, that's true. We could actually talk about that. The more we build in the physical world, the more I realize how hard we have made it to build in America, and we have a permission-based approach to building in this country that I think is fundamentally un-American. Imagine we drove to work the way we build in this country. Well, we'd have to apply for a permit. Our permit would have to specify what route we're going to take to the office. It will have to confirm that we're going to stop at every stop sign, turn on our turn signals, and the turn signals are bright enough to work, and we're not going to speed, and blah, 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 blah. And, you could never go anywhere like that. And instead we have a basically don't hurt other people approach to this. There's some rules. Follow the rules. If you break them in a minor way, you're ticketed. If you break them in a major way, maybe we'll take away your license. And if you break them in a really reckless way, there's criminal penalties, right? That's the way buildings should work.
Yeah.
Like there are some rules which amount to basically don't hurt other people, and then we enforce them, but we don't require pre-sign off. And to give you just some of the egregious examples of this, it took us longer to get the building permit to build our factory in North Carolina than it did to build the building from scratch. And that was 18 months of permitting. And I talked to my CEO friends, and they were like, "Wow, 18 months!
Tried doing a remodel.
How'd you do it that fast?"
Yeah,
right?
Tried doing a remodel in Boulder, Colorado.
Right? No, it's absolutely insane. And fundamentally, I think this comes down to the principle of innocent until proven guilty. But if you're building in this country, you're guilty, and you have to go prove that you're innocent. And it's insane. We really, really have to change this. So I think we desperately need a model where people can self-certify their compliance, and and if they're fraudulent or dangerous, you take away their right to do so. But fundamentally, you treat builders as innocent until proven guilty. So that's the single biggest piece of, I think, reform that's needed is just to delete permitting entirely. You should not need a permit to go build things.
How you're in Colorado? What kind of support do you get from our Colorado political leaders?
It's complicated, and I think a lot of people want to help. It's very jurisdictional in Colorado. So the governor's been a huge supporter. The governor's power is not universal though. Like one of the principles in the Colorado Constitution is something called home rule.
And by the way, about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, I was with the governor and I was telling him a little bit about what's going on here.
Yeah.
And his first one was, are they going to build that plan? Like, wait till you hear what is about to be unveiled there in terms of the pivot they're making that will provide the funding mechanism that will lead to the building of the plane.
Yeah.
So he's pretty excited about what you're doing.
He is pretty excited. Some of his key staff are actually right where we're sitting 24 hours ago. I'm going to see him in a few weeks. But in Colorado, there's a lot that's localized that the state doesn't have full control over. And I think one of the things we should do in America, I think Colorado needs this too, is just figure out how to have one set of rules that then you just have freedom to follow, which we don't have.
Yep. And we have to, I don't want to turn this into a big political discussion, but our political parties, particularly at the national level, there's so much infighting that they will oppose something or support something based solely on if it was their party who promoted it or the other party who promoted it. And that will hurt companies. One of my big messages to our Colorado politicians is, okay, we tend to be Democrats in the state, at least 57%, 56%, and that's fine. We could be Democrats. We could, as Democrats, some of them can oppose Trump, okay, but the emotional reaction to things hurts businesses. It hurts. So you could have a different point of view, but you don't have to be enemies. You don't have to be, express such hatred to people in the other political party, because if you do, you're hurting everyone in your state.
Yeah.
Find ways to, at least get along and be constructive. I mean, supersonic planes are going to be good for everybody, not just one party or the other. So let's work together where we can work together.
I agree. And by the way, I think we have some really interesting case studies on that. We have now gotten supersonic things through 2 different congressional committees unanimously, right? Hang on, like how did that happen? And I think a key part of this is appeal to values, and I can and not appeal to tribalism. And I think we have a lot of, my guy is good and your guy is bad, and everything your guy does is bad, or everything my guy does is good. It's just not true. And I think everybody deep down knows that. And I'd like to see us, focus a lot more on issues than on teams, and really talk about what are the most important solutions to the most important problems, and stay on the fact base. Because I think if we do that, we can find that 80% of the time, 80% of the people are going to agree, because there's a lot of agreement about what good looks like, and I think most Americans believe, a future in which we're more prosperous is good. A future in which healthcare is actually affordable is good.
If we're more safe.
For more safe, but and we should be able to, like, everyone should be able to choose their own risk level at their own risk without being defrauded. I mean, I think there's some things that, like, a lot of people could agree on, and then you can have some very healthy debates about how you translate that into real policy. But I think if you do that, like, a lot more collaboration is possible. And it's been my personal experience that the vast majority of people want faster flights, so long as we don't, like, boom people, right? Like, and I either I'm lucky and supersonic flight is politically easy, or there's actually a much better way. And I'd like to believe there's a much better way that's more America focused, and less, my team versus your team focused.
Yeah.
Leave that for sports. That's a lot of fun over there. But we don't need that in politics.
So let's fast forward to this time next year. What does this time next year look like for Boom?
Well, geez. So this time next year. So what is today? Today is December 18th. Well, our internal goal is 1 year from now minus 2 days. The first 42 megawatt power turbine has made 42 megawatts. Okay. So that's our goal.
And where would it make it? In your facility or
So our current plan is there's a test facility we're building at Colorado or in Spaceport. Well, we'll do that. And then the question is, what do we do with the 42 megawatts?
Yep.
And I told the team at our holiday party, we're going to get a gigantic 42 megawatt laser, and we're going to use the laser to etch the Boom logo on the moon. And I said, this is what we will do unless you come up with a less evil idea. Oh. So we I don't actually know what our demo will be. I want to do a really cool demo, which is not evil.
Yes. Well, that would be good. And when you give a maybe more practical example of what that might be.
I mean, so 42 megawatts. I mean, I think of all of this in relation to data centers. So like one data hall at Stargate is 150 megawatts. So if we had 10 of our units, that's like, it's 420 megawatts. It's like almost 4 data halls.
Gotcha. In fact, I used to own through Zayo a data center just up the street here. When they were rerouting me to get here, I drove by it and brought back some memories.
Cool.
It's a tiny little thing today, but it looked pretty big back in the day.
Well, it's always exciting when it's the thing that you've built starting from nothing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, this was such a great catch-up. You were one of the early guests on the Beer Roars. We were telling your story back then, but it was a different story. Today was a story about where you're taking this, the pivot, but more than anything, the resolve of an entrepreneur who's going to make a dream happen, and that dream's going to be good for humankind. So it's been great getting to know you and seeing what you're doing and seeing the luck you guys have made for yourselves and the accomplishments that you've already achieved. So you accomplished this. You're going to go down in history.
It feels a little chilling to hear that. Thank you. And it feels like the privilege of a lifetime to get to work on something like that. One of the things that's been surprising to me going through this is just how relatively easy it is to skate to the frontiers of human knowledge. Like, I kind of grew up thinking you need 15 PhDs before you ever maybe discover something that nobody else knew. But it's actually pretty easy to ask a question that nobody's yet answered. And it's remarkably easy to go kind of climb to that pinnacle of where we've been and then put one more brick on top. And my experience has been like once I did that, it's kind of addicting, and I just want to keep doing it. And so I hope that what a small team at Boom has been able to do will inspire more people to go do more things that leave the planet better than we found it.
Yep, there's no doubt it will. And I think you're going to meet maybe as early as next week an entrepreneur we just came across on the other side of Denver, closer to Boulder, who's building out a business that's very complementary to this business about large battery storage. And maybe you're going to meet one of those, and the two of you together can put your products and your technologies to create a more complete solution. So excited about that as well. But one of many examples of someone who you're going to be inspired by, but is going to be inspired by you as well.
LFG.
All right,
Dan, I appreciate you.
Good deal. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Bear Roars. Check out Stretch, the new song from Dan Caruso, with music by Jason Mendelson, available now on all streaming services. If you enjoyed the episode, please like and subscribe on your listening platform. This podcast was produced by Loud Bear Productions and edited by Kendall Weinberg with support from Gibson Siegert.